We do have some more things I want to get to, but man, the live questions are stacking up. Let's do one here from Vin. He says the problem with AEW is Tony is the face and first impression and look. He has a clown look. Telling Dynamite storied or using celebs like Costco guy is seen as second rate. Tough spot being the RC Cola versus Coke. I don't know if I follow all that, but I think the idea is he feels like it's a low rent presentation compared to WWE. I mean, isn't everything though? Isn't every wrestling promotion ever like nobody does production better than WWE? I don't think.
No, but I think there is something to Tony being the face of the company. And I understand, he owns the company, he writes a check, so he gets to write the rules. It's just the way life is. But again, when I first noticed it, when AEW first started, I was hearing and seeing a lot of Chris Jericho. So much so that I thought, okay, this makes sense. Tony's going to make Chris Jericho the face of the company. Not necessarily the guy making the matches and all that, but from a PR point of view, from an optics point of view, it looked like Chris Jericho was going to be the face of the company, at least for a short period of time. And then I started seeing more and more of Tony. And I don't mean this to sound too critical, because we're all born with whatever attributes or lack thereof we're born with. You don't get to make any choices in that case. So I don't like judging people necessarily on their looks. But it's called television. It works for a reason. And it's not just Tony's look. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with Tony's look. I don't know. Looks like an attractive guy to me. I don't know. I have to ask my wife for a better opinion, but Tony's problem is his delivery. He's fucking horrible. He should never have a microphone, especially in front of a live crowd, because he screams and yells and he's got like a high-pitched voice that's just fingernails on a chalkboard.
Well, he's not on TV all that often. What are you doing?
He's pushing himself all the time as the general manager, owner of the team, whatever. He would be better served to be in the background. He'd be better served to have somebody who's really good on television take his place in those silly media scrums or whatever the fuck you want to call them. And all of the other time, when you see Tony Khan on TV, we should be seeing somebody else, because Tony actually takes away credibility from an already challenged brand when it comes to credibility. Some people just aren't cut out for TV, and Tony's one of them.
Man, I hate that I'm going to double down on all this Tony talk right now, because I don't want to. But man, Dave Meltzer tweeted something this week that we can't let today go by without us talking about it. There's a fellow on Twitter, DL Rock 1, calls himself D-Train. And he says WCW would have never run out of business if Tony Khan were running it. And Dave Meltzer quote tweeted it and said, "I've never thought about this, but it is probably true. I mean, we'll never know. We don't know if it would have had the assent, but if he opened the checkbook and signed the top guys and treated them well, maybe would have. He could copy New Japan Pro Wrestling as well, and maybe more than just one angle, because he'd study. Sure, he'd never done the 2000 descent, but maybe he'd have never lost Austin and pushed him and more aggressively pursued Dwayne. Too many factors we don't know. So to be clear, and boy, I feel like I need to put the nose and hair on. I like Dave Meltzer. I'm a subscriber. I'm a reader. But goodness gracious, if Tony Khan were running WCW, he would have seen that Steve Austin wasn't so stunning. He should have been stone cold. He would have pursued a Canadian NFL washout, a Canadian League football player, and said, "We're going to call you The Rock. I know you're calling yourself Flex Kavana, but we're going to switch that up." And the collapse that happened for WCW in the year 2000, that definitely wouldn't have happened. And the only good idea that Eric Bischoff had was the NWO, and he clearly just stole that from New Japan. But Tony Khan would have continued to steal all those great ideas from New Japan and signed all their best guys, because everybody remembers Masahiro Chono main eventing Halloween no, he didn't. But who could forget the time that Great Muta, he was the world champ heading into Super Bro? No, that didn't happen. This is nonsensical horseshit. What is this?
It's so ridiculous. It's hard to respond to. I mean, it's all stupid. This is a good glimpse into the mind, I guess, of Dave Meltzer and why he's regarded as such a clown when it comes to his knowledge and understanding of the wrestling business. There's something weird going on with Dave, and I don't know quite what it is. But let's just take a couple of and you pointed out a couple things that were just absurd. But yeah, Tony did so well with, I don't know, Cody and Punk. He surely wouldn't have let Steve go, even though, by the way, if you go back and listen to the podcast I did with Steve Austin way back when, we get into this. And Steve Austin said on his podcast, Eric, if I were you, I would have fired me too. But Tony's done such a great job managing talent that it's hard for Dave to believe, even though he fucked up Cody Rhodes and he fucked up CM Punk. It's been a huge disaster for his company that he's never recovered from. I recovered. I let Steve Austin go, and WCW had its greatest run ever. Tony Khan let CM Punk go, and he's been in the toilet, circling the drain ever since. So just that fact is, I think, a really clear reflection of how Dave thinks and how disconnected and out of touch he really, truly is. It's bizarre. This is now getting into this is a bizarro world. Again, the subculture, cage match ranking, dirt sheet, IWC, Dave Meltzer fans, no offense to you, Conrad, are some of the weirdest fucking people in the world that don't even know how clueless they are.
Eric, the thing that really makes me scratch my head, there's a lot in here that I don't get. But for sure that it never had the 2000 descent. That implies, and I'm an AEW supporter, I'm an AEW fan, I'm going to continue to be. The 2000 collapse has already happened. What is he talking about?
Well, like that's to suggest that AEW isn't collapsing, which it clearly is.
No, that's what I'm saying, though, is like the 2000 collapse, the equivalent for AEW has already happened.
Yeah.
I'm saying, look at where the ratings went to for Thunder and Nitro versus where they are for Collision and Dynamite. It's already happened. The big star, the Stone Cold leaving, his name's Cody Rhodes. It already everything that Dave's saying, well, this wouldn't have happened and that could have, it's already kind of happened. Like now the question is, can Tony pull the nose up? And I think we all agree, Eric, it's best for the wrestling industry and the performers in it if he does pull the nose up. Like if AEW goes out of business, it's not like there will be other networks jumping at the chance to televise wrestling.
Quite the opposite.
Like you need it to be successful in order for there to be a third. Like right now, in theory, we have two viable national options, and TNA feels like it's bubbling up. They've got big announcements coming. It feels like there's big stuff on the horizon for them. It would be really great if we were back to there was a strong three. But man, if we go back to it's just WWE, the whole industry could be forever changed. So no one is beating the drum wanting Tony Khan to not be successful. Quite the opposite. But the hard work starts now. Like all the bad things have already happened. Now you got to pull the nose up, right? I just don't get how we're saying those things wouldn't have happened. It's like, dude, they already did.
Because Dave is clueless and disconnected. And that's it. He's emotionally invested in Tony and what Tony's doing and thinks it's the right thing to do and refuses to take a look at reality. And I think that tweet is just a perfect example of just how disconnected and delusional Dave Meltzer really is.
How long have you felt like Dave Meltzer had a hard on for you personally? Just with the way he writes, like he could copy New Japan as well. And maybe more than just one angle because he'd study.
You know, and
Like,
that's, and I don't really want to spend a lot of time talking about this, but there was never an NWO like angle in New Japan. Like, what the fuck is he even talking about? Was there ever an angle? If you look at the two guys, the way I set up the NWO and the third man being Hogan and turning heel, the babyface turning heel and taking over the company and all the things that we did that made NWO successful, can you point me to one scene in a New Japan show that looked like it could have been similar? What Dave did, because he's Dave and has whatever challenges he has, is he heard me say once the inspiration for the NWO angle started initially when I was going to Japan on a regular basis. And I was trying to analyze for myself, why is it that in the United States, both WWE, WWF at the time, and WCW were dying? The WWE house show business was horrible and getting worse by the day. WCW was worse than that. I'd go to Japan and there'd be 40, 50,000 people in the arena at a $100 ticket average, by the way. This was back in the 90s. And they'd show up wearing suits. Why was there such a disparity in the way wrestling was treated in Japan and the way that wrestling was treated in the United States? And what I took away from being in Japan and seeing those major differences between the New Japan product and the WWE, or excuse me, the American product, WWE and WCW, was that one was treated more seriously. It wasn't a human cartoon. There were no midget dentists. There was no IRS guys. There was no clowns. It was presented as a more legitimate sport, a more reality-based sport or product. That's what I took away. But somehow in Dave's fucked up mind and weirdness, he equates that to me imitating an angle that I saw. That's how challenged, that's a good way to say it. That's how challenged Dave Meltzer is. And he keeps going back to it. And it's funny because he if it were true, he could point it out and he'd have it all laid out. But it's not true. It never fucking happened. There was no NWO angle going on in New Japan when I was going back and forth there. It didn't fucking exist except for in Dave Meltzer's challenged mind. He's just making shit up, as he often does, to make himself sound like he knows what he's talking about when he clearly doesn't.